You what? Jack sputtered in shock. You're going to leave officially? Olivia already said all kinds of outrageous things over the course of this meeting, but he really could not believe what he was hearing at that moment. Michael leaving the Johnson family was unthinkable. It was true that ordinary families drifted apart once they got married, had kids, and started their own lives. Large, powerful dynasties like the Johnson family, though, only splintered off after the patriarch passed away. Even then, they would remain close within each branch of the family. Olivia's suggestion that they would just up and leave the family behind, walk away and never look back, it simply wasn't done. Olivia wanted to get under his skin, and it was working like a charm. We're not all walking out. It's my father that wants to walk, Olivia corrected. I'm just delivering the message on his behalf. You are taking all of this way too far, Olivia, Bruno snarled. This meeting was not at all going the way Bruno wanted it to. I'm the one who needs to be demanding money, he thought. I can't be paying off Michael instead. I think you both know I'm being pretty reasonable, Olivia snorted. You understand even better than I do that my dad has the leverage, and that you don't need this disruption right now. You need him. This is not how this works. I am the head of the Johnson family. You do not make demands from me, Jack bellowed. You're going to split from the family before your grandfather is even gone? Bruno asked incredulously, trying hard not to say the word dead. It's like Grandpa said. He is the head and has the final say in the Johnson family. His decisions up to this point are why we have no choice but to leave. Uncle Bruno, you can handle things in the West, I'm sure, since Grandpa's already put so much faith in you. It might require a few cutbacks from what Uncle Bruno is used to, but you'll manage. Olivia smiled. Olivia, Bruno frowned. I don't like what you're insinuating. I'm just being honest. Olivia turned and looked seriously at Jack. I'll make myself clear. Our choices are to leave and let the world know the Johnson family name is ruined, or finally get what we're fairly owed. Such treachery! How did I end up with such disloyal offspring? Jack breathed heavily from the shock and stress of Olivia's words. This girl is going to be the death of me. Grandpa, don't make me laugh. This isn't some big mystery. When have you ever had a loyal bone in your body? Olivia challenged. You're reaping what you've sown for decades. My dad has waited patiently, and he has always been completely dedicated to you. He's done anything and everything you've asked of him, and more throughout his whole life. He has been a model perfect son to you. And yet you constantly favor Uncle Bruno, who doesn't lift a finger to help you. He stays away in London, amusing himself and coasting on the family name. The double standard would be hilarious if it wasn't so offensive. She knew the truth was on her side, and it felt good. I finally get to say all of this out loud to their faces. Olivia sat back, watching their faces twitch with rage. Don't pretend you haven't always known, Grandpa Jack. It's not fooling anyone. The veins stuck out on Jack and Bruno's foreheads, which were creased into angry and shocked expressions. Olivia thought their heads might burst. They would not bend to Olivia so easily. I'm not giving Michael 1 red cent. Jack spat fiercely. He thinks he can pull this stunt and get what he wants. He gets nothing. Olivia smiled confidently. My dad wants fair compensation, yes. But I, on the other hand, am not as motivated by money. I'm perfectly happy with the satisfaction of keeping my word and letting the world know. You've made your choice loud and clear, and now you've made mine very easy, so thank you for that. My dad will officially leave the family, and all of the negative fallout and attention to your scandals will rain down on the Johnson family business. I would have picked the other option, but what do I know? I'm just a silly, stupid little girl. Rest assured, I will uphold my end of the deal. Olivia stood to leave. Oops, don't want to forget my leftovers, she said as she picked up the white takeout bag on her side of the table. Jack folded his arms, fists clenched, and refused to look at Olivia. Bruno remained stone-faced, the vein in his forehead still pulsing as he gritted his teeth. Olivia walked toward the door but paused as if she remembered something and turned back to them. "Oh, and one more thing. A little tip for you." Olivia pointed her finger at the top of the wall that faced her. "I wouldn't use the G703 invisible camera going forward. The quality is terrible, and you can spot them from a mile away." She glanced back at Jack and Bruno. The color drained from both of their faces. How did she see the camera? That system cost a fortune. Olivia smiled, did a little wave, and walked out, leaving them speechless and fuming. Jack and Bruno sat together in silence for what felt like ages before Bruno spoke up. "Dad, did you really just agree to let Michael publicly walk away? From the Johnson family?" "What do you think? Don't remind me," Jack thundered. He shook with anger as he replayed the interaction with Olivia in his mind. That girl knew we were watching her the entire time and purposely pretended not to have any idea. I'm a chump for thinking we could fool her and that she would just walk into a trap. I'm one of the shrewdest businessmen in the world, and I've been outsmarted by a newborn kitten. Everything I've built for decades will be gone just like that, because of a teenager. Bruno frowned, racking his brain for any other way out of this. "And you really aren't going to pay Michael?" "I'm not giving Michael squat. He's not getting the lint from my laundry," Jack bellowed. "That traitorous, good-for-nothing son of a gun can forget about getting anything from me ever again." "Right," Bruno nodded nervously. "Hopefully not giving anything to Michael will work in my favor, seeing as I need to ask for money." "I agree. It's for the best." "Let's go," Jack barked and stood up, then kicked over the chair he had sat in. "What a wretched day, an utter disaster." "I'll give Pete Pell the go-ahead then," Bruno said dryly, used to Jack's enraged outbursts, "to take care of the, Olivia problem." Jack paused for a moment, catching his breath. "Very well," Jack nodded darkly. "But tell him to be clean about it. No mistakes, no slip-ups, no footprints of any kind. He has to be completely undetectable." "Yes, of course," Bruno agreed, his face grave. Jack's eyes showed he was far away in thought as the weight of the events set in motion hit him. Even without giving Michael any of what he demanded, this will cost me at least $200 million. $200 million with an M. This cannot stand. Jack dropped a fistful of money on the table and stormed out of the restaurant. Back at the Johnson mansion, Monica entertained herself with thoughts of Olivia's punishment. She knew that her Grandpa Jack and Uncle Bruno were probably in the middle of some great plan now, since they had arranged to meet with Olivia. The wait to find out what happened was killing her. All Monica could think about was the many different ways Olivia could die. Slowly and painfully. Maybe even embarrassingly, too. If there was any fairness left in the world, it was the best thing she had to look forward to. Monica lied on her luxurious bed, scrolling through social media accounts that focused on fashion. Suddenly, she heard the crunch of tires on gravel in the driveway, and she sat up. She ran to the window and looked out. It was Bruno Johnson's car pulling into the courtyard. Monica's heart raced faster and faster, and her eyes lit up. It's done. Finally. Justice for Monica. Monica ran out of her room all the way to Rachel's suite in the house and excitedly knocked on the door. "Mom! Mom!" she called out. "What, dear? What is it?" Rachel threw open the door, frowning with worry. "What's wrong?" "Nothing, Mom. It's Grandpa and Uncle Bruno. They're back. They went to meet with Olivia today," Monica said in air quotes, implying there was something more sinister going on than just a meeting. "Hurry! Let's go hear how it went." Monica was practically jumping up and down with excitement. "You're always talking about how powerful Grandpa and Uncle Bruno are. This is the time for it to finally pay off. They both went to the meeting? They must have dealt with Olivia. The horrible little witch, I'm sure of it. What else could it be?" "What?" Rachel gasped, putting a hand to her chest. "Could our problems finally be over?" "How do you know, sweetie?" she asked Monica breathlessly. "I heard them talking about it," Monica explained. She left out the part where she had deliberately eavesdropped. We don't need to get bogged down in all the details, she reasoned. Mom, hurry, let's go downstairs. Grandpa also said he intended for Dad to come home. Let's go hear what happened. Okay, Rachel nodded. Upon hearing Monica's words, Rachel's heart skipped a beat. She joined Monica, and they walked as quickly as they could down to the first floor of the house. She was so giddy, and her thoughts raced so much that one of her slippers fell off as she walked. She hurried back to put it on, and her hands shook with anticipation. She repeated calming thoughts to herself. Everything is finally working out as it should. Jack must have made his move. Olivia will be gone without a hitch, and Michael will return, his familiar, loyal self. These ideas were supposed to calm Rachel, but instead, they made her unable to contain the electricity that surged through her. Rachel and Monica finally made it to the living room just as Jack and Bruno walked in. Grandpa Jack, you're back, Monica said sweetly. She knew that she couldn't directly ask what they had done with Olivia, because she wasn't technically supposed to know about it. Her eyes danced with anticipation. What were you and Uncle Bruno up to? Monica feigned ignorance. Monica, why don't you leave Grandpa alone and find something amusing to do in your room or something? Bruno said dismissively. Can't this silly girl see that Jack is furious? Not a good time, Monica. Read the room. Why would I do that? Monica asked playfully, though her thoughts were deviously spinning with images of Olivia's demise. I can't just go back to my room at a time like this. I need details. She looked expectantly back and forth between Jack and Bruno. Dad, Rachel pleaded. She had waited too long for this day to just beat around the bush. How did it go today? Is Michael coming back? She asked hopefully. How do you know about any of that business? Jack rounded on Rachel, alarmed. Monica said that you mentioned something. Rachel stammered. She didn't notice the blood drain from Monica's face as she accidentally outed her daughter's eavesdropping. Jack's wild eyes darted to Monica. Come here, he motioned to her. Monica silently cursed her mother for blowing her cover. Great, Mom, now I'm screwed. She obediently approached Jack, unsure what to expect. I overheard you talking by accident. I knew you went to find Dad and I was excited all day. Must I suffer so many conniving offspring? Jack bellowed. Monica staggered back, completely stunned. Grandpa Jack, Get your eavesdropping ears out of my sight before they feel my wrath, Jack yelled. Monica cowered before Jack and Bruno. What the hell went wrong? What is even happening? Monica's mind reeled. This was supposed to be her big moment of triumph. It was supposed to make all of her suffering worth it because Olivia would be dead as a doornail. She was supposed to hear that beautiful music to her ears, and instead, she was the target of Jack's fury as she felt the full force of his angry glare in that moment. What in the actual hell was going on? Jack? Rachel gasped. She was completely stunned by Jack's anger at Monica. It was the last thing she expected when they came down to hear about Jack and Bruno's meeting with Olivia. You worthless barnacle! Jack angrily pointed at Monica. You have no sense or awareness outside of yourself. You couldn't pour water out of a boot if the instructions were on the heel. Monica thought through Jack's insult until she got it. Hey! Other than eavesdropping on business that is not yours, what else are you capable of that isn't causing trouble for the Johnson family? Jack yelled. Monica's face was white as a ghost. He's right. I was eavesdropping. But what does he mean about causing trouble for the Johnson family? What did I do? I mean, besides the fire, which is gonna get solved once Olivia's gone. She's the one who causes all the real trouble for the Johnson family, not me. Everything was fine, and we were all happy before she showed up and ruined everything. It's her fault, not mine. Monica opened her mouth to argue. But There you go again, foolishly opening your mouth. Don't even try talking back. Jack's voice boomed. I promise you, you will regret it. Dad, take a breath. Rachel hurried to Monica's side and wrapped her arms around her protectively. Please, Monica is just a teenager. She doesn't understand. If there's anyone to yell at me instead. I'm the one who knows better, and I've caused you a lot of headaches. She understands plenty, Jack snorted. She's always been your daughter, an apple not far from the tree, always scheming and lying and making a huge mess of things ever since she was born. Rotten through and through. Monica bit her lip and stared in disbelief at Jack. Why is he acting like this? What did I do? Olivia is the one he should be angry with. Jack glared back at Monica. What are you staring at? Have I not made myself clear? Jack scoffed. It's hard to believe that I wound up with two deceitful, manipulative granddaughters. I'm not useless. I made the Johnson family proud when I became Chef Mario Vincenzo's apprentice. You were proud of me, remember? Monica pleaded. Oh, yes, that again. Jack rolled his eyes. You really do have your head in the clouds. Do you really think just anyone can win an apprenticeship with one of the great chefs with just a few average skills? From day one, he wanted Olivia to be his apprentice, and you were lucky that didn't work out. You benefited from some dumb luck and your family's reputation. But you are so spoiled that you don't even realize you never really earned anything in your silly life. Ward on third base and you think you hit a triple. Monica's eyes widened and her mouth fell open in shock. That's not true. I beat her. You're a fool. Jack waved his hand dismissively. No, I won. Monica whined. I'm better than her. I became his apprentice because I was better than her, and I'm still better than her. Monica thought back to the competition. It was the only time she had beaten Olivia, and it was the most important victory of her life. For that fact not to be true, for it all to be a sham, would unravel all Monica had left to cling to. Monica shook her head desperately, trying to block out what Jack was saying. Ha! Jack snorted cruelly and looked down on Monica with disdain. He had not originally intended to rip into her this harshly, but Monica had worn out his last nerve with her eavesdropping. Olivia infuriated him, but she had guts. Monica was a simpering idiot who blundered into one headache after another. Monica shook her head, not wanting to believe him. These might be the meanest words anyone has ever said to me in my life. How can he talk to me this way? She glared back at Jack angrily and turned to Bruno. Uncle Bruno, tell him. You know I worked so hard for that position. I practiced over and over and I earned it. I refuse to believe any other story. Uncle, tell him I won that accomplishment. Bruno looked at Monica and saw how pathetic she was. He didn't want to argue with Jack, but he also didn't want to add to Monica's misery because he knew Rachel would never forgive him for it. There were so many things Monica probably needed to hear to bring her back to reality, but now was not the time. He awkwardly looked away from her. Monica gasped at Bruno's silence toward her. Saying nothing said it all. She felt like a cold bucket of ice water had just been dumped on her head. Rachel frowned at Bruno, but she suspected he refused to offer Monica any comforting words because it would mean crossing Jack, and that was clearly a terrible idea at the moment. Still, even with the threat of drawing Jack's ire, she couldn't stand to see Monica's heart broken like this. Of course, Monica, sweetheart, everyone knows you were good enough to be the best and win, Rachel said comfortingly. Besides, there's no way in hell that Victoria's daughter could be better than my daughter. That would be ridiculous, absolutely not. I've had enough. Jack snorted coldly and turned to head upstairs. Wait just a minute, Monica called after him meekly. What happened with your meeting with Olivia today? When is Dad going to come back? Monica needed at least some good news. So what if Grandpa Jack is right, and I didn't really beat Olivia for the apprenticeship? I only care about winning the war, not the battle. All I need is for Olivia to be dead, to have my dad back, and I'll have won the only things that really matter. Jack heard Monica's irritating voice and slowly turned back around to face her. His eyes were deadly. Let me get one thing through to you, Missy, and to all of you. If anyone dares to mention Michael or Olivia ever again, they'll be thrown out of the Johnson family forever." Jack spoke low and menacing to convey he was deadly serious. Monica, Rachel, and Bruno all stood rooted where they were, stunned into silence. Jack turned on his heel and marched his way upstairs. Bruno looked apologetically at Rachel and obediently followed after Jack. Monica struggled to catch her breath, and she felt a wave of dizziness. How can this be? Olivia is going to get away with everything, and I have nothing? No revenge, no justice, not even my dad is coming back? I really lost? The thoughts were too much for Monica to bear, and she suddenly felt faint. Her eyes fluttered and her legs buckled under her. "Monica!" Rachel cried out as she lunged forward to catch Monica before she could fall to the ground. "Are you all right, darling? You're scaring me. Say something." "Mommy," Monica moaned as she collapsed into Rachel's arms. She was nothing but a miserable puddle with no fight left. "Didn't you say that Grandpa Jack was a powerful man? Didn't you say Uncle Bruno and he would take care of everything? How did this happen? Everything is all wrong." Rachel stammered at a loss for words. She had no idea what to say. She was just as confused that it had ended like this. Rachel was sure they had the upper hand and that things would finally go their way. "I don't know." "Why?" Monica wailed. She grabbed Rachel's arm, and suddenly a new wave of energy surged through her body that was completely drained moments ago. Her eyes glowed with a fiery rage. She gritted her teeth and shook Rachel's by the arm. "Tell me why." "I don't know," Rachel cried. Her heart was breaking just as much as Monica's to see her suffering, not to mention her own despair. Michael wasn't any closer to coming back than he had been on the day he walked out. Rachel was overcome with pain and misery. "You don't know?" Monica glared wildly at Rachel's face. Suddenly, an idea occurred to her. "Maybe you don't know, but I think I know." "What? What do you know?" Rachel asked desperately. "If there's any hope left, my brilliant daughter will think of it." "Monica, tell me what you know." "The cruel old man did it on purpose." Monica clenched her fists and gritted her teeth. Of course he did it on purpose, she thought. No one gets around Jack Johnson. The only way for Olivia to slip away from him unscathed is if he intends to let her go. There's no way he would fail. Monica breathed in and out heavily, crazed with anger. It was him. He did this whole thing on purpose. Grandpa Jack never wanted Dad to reunite with us. It's the only explanation. How else could it have gone down like this? Rachel looked at her daughter warily. Monica looked unhinged. Rachel responded loud enough for anyone else to listen. Monica, don't be ridiculous. Rachel glanced around to see if anyone was nearby, but she saw no servants or staff and heaved a sigh of relief. She lifted her hand up to stroke Monica's face comfortingly. Monica, sweetie, I know this is all very hard. I'm devastated too, but I don't think it's any more complicated than it seems. It's all there is to it. No, listen to me, I'm not crazy. I'm not overthinking this. Monica pushed Rachel's hand away from her face. Monica's cheeks burned with anger. She didn't want anyone to touch her. It felt patronizing. Mom, I'm fine. It's all making sense. Monica, why don't you go back to your room and rest for a while? We can talk this through and regroup after that. You're probably traumatized. Rachel took a deep breath and took Monica's hand. We need to recover from how upsetting that was. No! Monica shook Rachel's hand away and took a few steps back. Her eyes filled with disappointment and betrayal. Mom, why won't you listen to me? Why don't you believe that he really did it on purpose? How else could he lose to Olivia? Why would he let her get away with causing trouble? You see how he treats me when he's angry with me. Why would he give Olivia special treatment? He doesn't care about her. She's the worst granddaughter. He must have some secret plan with her. Why else would he turn on us and not bring our family back together? Rachel listened carefully to Monica but said nothing. Mom, there's only one way to bring Dad back. You know it. And I know it, Monica said resolutely. Do you mean... Rachel tried to follow. Monica gritted her teeth and her eyes thirsted for blood. We have to kill Grandpa Jack. Monica! Rachel gasped. She had heard Monica make this wild suggestion before, and it was still shocking to hear it to come out of her mouth again. Rachel shook her head fearfully. Don't shake your head. Think about it. Do you want Dad to come back? I'm finally seeing it all clearly. If the old man isn't out of our way, Dad won't come back. That's why he left in the first place, isn't it? To make a point to the great Jack Johnson? We have to get rid of him. We have to kill Grandpa Jack. Monica looked seriously into her mother's eyes. I'm doing this with your help or without you. I've made up my mind. Rachel stammered. Her heart was tearing in two. Monica has totally lost her mind. She's not able to see reason. Jack was unbelievably cruel to us today, but could we really kill him? The patriarch of the Johnson family? Mom, if you're not going to help me, then at least stay out of my way. Monica turned away from Rachel coldly. Okay, Rachel interrupted. Okay, I will help you kill him. I can't let you do it alone. Monica turned back to face her mother, and her stony face broke into a wicked smile. That's more like it. And whoever tries to stop me will die. Jack Johnson and his son Bruno had a feverish private conversation for an hour and a half. During that time, Jack made decisions affecting thousands of people about the fates of the Johnson Company branches in New York and London, as well as the public relations efforts of the Johnson family as a whole. In just 30 minutes after Jack had made his decisions, one phone call led to the release of an official announcement that was on all major news networks and their websites. In a shocking twist, the former CEO of the Johnson family business, Michael Johnson, has been officially removed from all responsibilities by the Johnson family, one reporter declared. The economic fallout of this move is unknown, but it's going to be substantial. This news was something that had been apparent to anybody paying attention to their company. But the official announcement was a big enough deal that it sent shockwaves through the business communities throughout America and Europe. It was known that Michael had given up his position in order to chase a woman and start a smaller company. If someone was parting ways under normal circumstances, their disappearance would be quiet. But releasing a statement like this wasn't just a news item about Michael. It was an attack on him. He didn't step away from the family business. He was cast out by the family. It was normal for eldest sons in big businesses to leave their family responsibilities for a time, to chase love or some other passion, while their parents looked the other way and let them make mistakes before returning home. But the release of this statement made it something unusual, and something the upper echelons of New York were eager to watch with scandalized glee. He's really stepped in it now, one socialite told another over lunch. That Michael Johnson thought he was invincible, but now look at him. Everyone wondered whether Jack really wanted to get rid of Michael forever, or was just trying to force his son into submission so he would return home. Either way, Jack's move was swift and severe. Everyone then turned to watch breathlessly for what Michael would do. Would he continue to chase women around the city, or return to his father? Olivia lay on her stomach on the couch with her legs crossed, looking at articles releasing Jack's statement on her phone. Everyone was speculating about what her dad would do next, but she had not heard from Michael himself. She turned to look up at Michael, who was sitting in front of his computer, concentrating on the Grudge Keeper. Olivia thought with a wry smile that Michael probably did not care very much about this at the moment. He has more important things on his mind, Olivia mused internally, like trying to kill that Lich King that he's totally not ready to fight yet. But, unfortunately, that doesn't mean that everyone else is going to stop worrying about the Johnson Company. Victoria entered the room carrying a plate of sliced fruit. She walked to Michael's side and placed the fruit next to his mouth. "Eat something, Michael," she said firmly. "Yes, sir," Michael cheekily responded. He gasped at something on the screen, and as he moved his mouse to react, it clicked against the plate Victoria set down. He wasn't able to execute the maneuver he was intending to use to save himself, and his character was vaporized in a bolt of green energy. Michael rubbed his forehead. Victoria, in the future, please don't leave things where they're going to mess with my game. I had a shot at clearing the level this time, and, well, your fruit seems to be working for the enemy. Victoria inhaled like she was about to respond, but just shook her head and turned to leave. Olivia watched this happen and knew what her mom must have on her mind. Michael frowned, surprised. You're not going to tell me that was really rude when you were just trying to feed me. I knew even when it was coming out of my mouth that it was very rude. It's nothing. Victoria tried to give him a reassuring look. You should eat more. She turned away from him again and was about to leave the room. Wait, Victoria, Michael said, finally putting aside the laptop. What happened? Are you all right? It's nothing. I'm fine. Go back to your game. Victoria thought that the longer Michael didn't have to deal with this news and could successfully hide from it, the better. You don't seem fine. Michael was now concerned. He turned to Olivia, hoping to get answers. What happened to your mother? She's right. It is nothing. Olivia sat up and shrugged. Grandpa and Uncle Bruno came to negotiate with me today. What? I can't believe I missed that. Michael was stunned, and then his face darkened. What happened, those... He stopped himself from employing all the curse words he wanted to use about his dad and brother. They wanted you to come back to run Grandpa Jack's business. I told them that that was impossible. Olivia took a deep breath. Then, right after that, they released an announcement about how you're permanently kicked out of the family business and uninvited from executing all of your responsibilities with them. What? I'm kicked out of the family? They can do that? Michael was stunned, trying to absorb the baffling information that was completely new to him. Yeah, She knew her father needed to hear this, but she hesitated. She wasn't sure which part of this would hurt him. Maybe all of it. It's all over the news, Olivia said. What? Victoria said to Olivia. She thought she knew the worst of it, but this was surprising to her. You had something to do with that announcement? Well, I didn't know you had a discussion with them that led to their stupid decisions. Olivia closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Yes, it was me. And I did kind of push them toward what they said. They're terrible people. We're all better off without them. Victoria sighed. Olivia, that's a very impulsive decision. Olivia felt defensive. I didn't make the decision. I just wouldn't promise them that I would make Dad do anything. It was crazy for them to put you in that position. Victoria said, You're a kid, but Michael, the Johnsons are supposed to be your home. Jack is your father. Why do they think they can change that? They don't have to be your family anymore if they don't deserve it. We don't need them, Dad. They don't deserve to have a place in your life. Victoria shook her head and cast a wary eye on Michael. Olivia, this is your dad's family we're talking about. Your father values his family relationships very much. It makes sense that it's tougher for you to see that. But your dad has said in the past that respecting his father and his family matters very much to him. And whether or not you fantasized about getting to give them a piece of your mind, these are very real consequences for your dad. Olivia began to feel angry. Really? I know they're his family. I've spent so much time and energy tolerating them and avoiding saying the things I want to say because they're family. I definitely wanted them to cast us out a long time ago, but I just couldn't anymore. And they came to me to have this discussion. Michael turned to Olivia, his expression unreadable. Olivia. Olivia braced herself for Michael to become angry and have some sort of outburst. What, Dad? You... Michael paused, laughing slightly to himself. You are so smart and such an incredible daughter. I'm trying to form more coherent thoughts, but just give me 5. He raised his hand. Yes! Olivia joyfully high-fived him. Victoria was stunned. Michael. Michael turned to Victoria. I know you've only ever seen the side of me that cared about all the Johnson politics and reputation and blah, 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 blah. But I'm actually happy to be free of it. I don't think I could have made that decision for myself. To be honest, when I first heard Olivia say it, my heart skipped a beat. I wouldn't even have imagined that it was the right thing to do. But after it's already been made for me, wow, what a weight was just lifted off my shoulders. This is a kind of relaxation I've never felt before. It's like I just got a 2-hour massage. Olivia beamed at her dad, thrilled to see him so happy. Victoria spun to Olivia, speaking quickly. I'm sorry, Olivia. I never thought I'd see him react this way, not in a million years. Me neither, Michael burst, smiling wide. I'm no longer Michael Johnson, the eldest son of the Johnson family, or the CEO of the Johnson family business. I'm just Michael, a guy. I'm just me. Olivia and Victoria exchanged a look, both familiar with the long lifetime he'd spent under his father's thumb, and both elated for him to finally be out from under it. That's right, Olivia said. So should we go out to celebrate? She gasped. Let's go get French fries and dessert from that diner down the street. Yeah, Michael said, surprised to hear himself say that's what he wanted to do. That's the kind of thing Michael, just a guy, would do. So late? Victoria was incredulous. I'm happy for you, Michael, but doesn't eating rich food this late at night mess with your stomach? Michael knew she was right, and he knew she was right. Victoria, I was feeling very cool just now. Victoria continued. You've always said you hate going anywhere after 8 p.m. I'm a new man, Vicky. I'd just be staying up and playing video games if I stayed here anyway. Catch me if you can. Michael threw his arms around Victoria. Come on, you should come too. It'll be my treat. I just won't order anything fried, or spicy, or that has dairy in it. That doesn't leave much on the menu, Olivia muttered. Victoria shook her head. Come on, Mom, Olivia urged. Victoria? Michael gave Victoria what he imagined was a seductive, Lothario-type look. You two are unbelievable, Victoria laughed. Let's go. Yes, Olivia and Michael shouted in unison. If anyone dares to mention that they're having stomach troubles tomorrow, they will never hear the end of it from me. Victoria raised a finger in mock severity. Michael was already pulling on his coat and shoes. Oh, you and I both know I'm going to have stomach troubles tomorrow. The three of them happily trekked through the snow to a toasty diner on a nearby corner. The next day's tabloids were filled with the Johnson family statements, pundit speculation about the statements, and pictures of Michael, Victoria, and Olivia joking around in a diner, having a happy outing as a family. Michael happily ate nachos covered in jalapenos, a milkshake, and French fries. He had an upset stomach the next day, but no regrets. Seeing those stories published side by side made everyone who had an eye on Michael feel certain that he was just chasing a woman and didn't care about his family or business obligations. The narrative was just as Grandpa Jack had intended for it to be. On the other side of town, someone else was reading those tabloid stories. Rachel. Michael had completely left the Johnson family. What use was he to her now? Divorce was on her agenda once again. This time, she did not want to drag it out to have a conversation or use it to get something else. She just knew it was time to be divorced. She signed the divorce agreement sent by Ansel Parr without saying a word. Though the movements she made to execute the paperwork were cold and efficient, the whole process felt like a knife of ice through her chest. A tear rolled down her cheek as she thought to herself, so we're divorced now. We could always remarry in the future. But with that done, she had to focus. She had more important things to do with Monica. When Michael received the confirmation that Rachel had finally signed the divorce papers, after dragging the process out for so long, he felt like a balloon that had been untied from a weight. He was single again. He was free. That afternoon, he told Victoria that he needed to hang back at work and get some things done, and for her to head home without him. Once she finished her workday, packed up and left, Michael told his assistant, Ansel Parr, that he needed his help with something important, and that they had to head out right away. Michael and Ansel stood over a ritzy jewelry counter, each feeling equally as helpless in this setting. Michael was flustered. "Help me, Ansel. I brought you here because I need help. I have to get this right." "I never promised to know anything about diamonds or women's jewelry," Ansel hissed. "And you keep hating everything I say." "You wanted me to get a cocoa diamond. That's obviously just a scam. Nobody wants a brown diamond." Ansel caught the eyes of the annoyed store clerk, who shook her head. "You should just listen to her. She works here. It's her job to tell you the right thing to get." Either Michael was oblivious to the clerk's judgment or just didn't care. "Well, she's the one who stocks brown diamonds. And besides, you know Victoria. Would she wear any of these rings? They're all starting to look the same." Ansel rolled his eyes. "You know her far better than I do, and you're just as lost. I don't know that this is either of our skills, but if you were considering getting your assistant something as a thank you for all his hard work, however, I think there's something right over here." Michael suddenly tapped his forehead, annoyed at himself. "I'm being silly. I know what I need to do." Ansel heaved a sigh of relief. "Yes, just pick one." "No," Michael replied. He dialed Olivia's number and she picked up. "Hey, Dad, what's up? How soon can you get downtown?" After another stretch of time with the store clerk growing increasingly annoyed at the two men lounging around not choosing any jewelry, Ansel was self-conscious, and Michael was completely unbothered. "Should I head home? You two have got this handled, I believe," Ansel offered, desperate to escape. Michael patted his shoulder. "No, you're moral support, and after this, we're picking out flowers." Olivia arrived grinning. "Let's do this." She wasn't surprised to get Michael's call or to hear what he was up to. She had known that once Michael got divorced, he would tell Victoria his feelings as quickly as he could. She couldn't wait either. Olivia surveyed the counter for approximately 6 seconds before pointing to an item. "Buy this." Michael was confused. "Huh? But that's not a ring." "Yes," Olivia said patiently. "Mom will only accept it because it's not a ring. Dad, don't you remember the last time you scared her and you became neighbors?" Michael took this in. He knew she was right. He needed to temper his excitement a bit. He had been chomping at the bit to return to Victoria ever since he had the divorce papers drawn up, but he didn't know if she had been having the same thoughts. He reflected on what a difficult mess it was to get divorced. Even though his breakup with Victoria all those years ago hadn't technically been a divorce, it still carried the weight of one. He still had flashbacks to the fight he and Victoria had before she left. Before he could react to what was going on, she made the decision and was out of his life. And now here he was actually getting divorced from Rachel, and she dragged out the whole ugly process for a few months. It was a little funny that after so many tumultuous years, the person that Michael loved the most was the person he loved first. But after everything that had happened, Victoria was still hesitant to dive back in. Michael sighed and nodded. He caught the clerk's eye and pointed to the earrings Olivia suggested. "I'll take those. They were beautiful, dainty and understated, but with a slightly edgy design." "And Dad?" Olivia gently chastised. "You have to know what flowers Mom likes after all this time. Don't make Ansel suffer anymore." Michael was about to disagree. Then as he paid, he searched his memory. He was struck with the information. Victoria told him years ago. "You're right, Olivia. I'm just anxious about all of this." Olivia smiled and hugged him from the side as the clerk handed him the earrings in a small bag. When Olivia and Michael arrived home, Victoria was just about finished cooking something that smelled incredibly delicious. "Mom, it smells so good," Olivia called out. "Did you make chicken soup?" "Nothing gets past that nose," Victoria answered from the kitchen. "Go wash your hands and dish up." "Yeah, I'm gonna take my time." Olivia hurried upstairs before Victoria, confused, could clarify. Michael entered the kitchen holding a bouquet of sunflowers. "Michael?" was all she could say as she took the bouquet from his hands. "These are for you," he said as he held the flowers out to her. I am divorced." "Oh." Victoria wasn't sure what to say as she took the flowers out of his hands. Then I wish you a happy divorce. Michael laughed uncomfortably, and so did she. Victoria put a hand on her forehead. I mean, sorry? Or congratulations, or both? Go wash your hands. I'll put these in a vase. Victoria turned around to busy herself with something when Michael took a step forward. Wait a minute. She froze, not looking at him, as a leaden pause filled the room while Michael tried to figure out how best to say something so important that had been such a long time coming. I know it's scary, and I don't mean to put you on guard. I just wanted you to know that I'm officially divorced and single again now. I can pursue the person I love, but I won't push you to accept me, and I won't recklessly destroy our current relationship, because things are honestly really, really great. Take all the time you want and let me know at any time if you need more space. Michael spoke slowly, hoping the words sounded as sincere as he meant them. I am Olivia's father. I want to be a man who can take care of you and your daughter for the rest of your life. I want to be your husband, for real this time. I hope you can give me a chance. Victoria took this in, looking worried, when she finally nodded. A smile broke out across her face. That nod made Michael wild with joy. Yes, he threw his arms open. Can I hug you? She laughed. Of course, she said as she leaned into him, her arm still holding the bouquet. He hugged her, the flowers between them, leaning his cheek against the top of her head. She leaned her head on his shoulder, her forehead against his neck. You remember, Victoria said, pulling back as she blushed. I will let you know at any time if I need more space. And we're still just dating, nothing is for sure. Yes, Michael replied, still grinning. And I cherish the opportunity to date you. She laughed, rolling her eyes. I'm serious, he insisted. She smiled sly. Did you remember that these are my favorite flowers? Or did Olivia tell you? I remembered, of course, because I'm an amazing man, he said, grabbing a vase out of the cupboard for her. Victoria picked a dead leaf off one of the stems. Really? Michael cut the stems of the sunflowers and placed them in a vase full of water. Well, she told me I would remember if I thought harder, and then I did remember because I am slightly less than amazing but very close to it. Enjoy. Go wash your hands, Victoria said, smiling. Michael walked to the bathroom. Once he left the room, she went to her room, closed the door behind her, and immediately covered her face with her hands. She sank into the stool at her vanity. She folded her arms on the table and laid her forehead down against them. What am I doing? She muttered to herself. What am I doing? What am I doing? She looked up at her face, holding her hair at the roots. Her face was red and blotchy. She hoped it hadn't looked like that when Michael could see. She just was so stressed by this turn of events. Am I a kid again? Why did I just completely lose my mind out there? Victoria thought angrily to herself. That man said he wanted to look out for me and Olivia, but he completely abandoned both of us. Because he's changed, her mind replied. Because he's kind and because he's handsome. Because he wasn't a good dad, but now he is. And he wasn't a good fiancé, but now maybe. Flowers and apology in his face just cast some sort of stupid spell on me, she thought, disagreeing with herself again. I was temporarily out of my mind. He makes me insane. If Michael asked her at that moment if she would marry him, she would turn away and run until she got to Maine. But since he wanted to just take things slow, and she could tell him to get lost at any time, she hadn't been able to think of a reason to turn him down just then, and she truly hadn't wanted to. Victoria took a deep breath. She could just tell Michael right away that this was a bad idea, and that they would stay friends. Only friends. But if this could work, if she could really be back in love with him and trust him, a small bruised feeling deep in her heart knew that's what she truly wanted. Victoria took a deep breath, collecting herself and letting her tempestuous feelings calm down. She smoothed her hair. She would have to pretend nothing was wrong as she ate a meal with Michael and Olivia. Victoria left her bedroom and found Olivia and Michael sitting in the dining room with 3 bowls of soup she had made. Putting on a cheerful voice, she said, Hey, sorry about that. Let's eat." "Okay," Olivia said, immediately suspicious. She knew her mom so well and could tell that something wasn't quite right. She felt sick as her dad obliviously tucked into his soup after shooting Victoria a warm smile. Olivia regretted letting her dad do this and encouraging him at all. She wanted her parents to be together so badly. She treasured the way that the three of them were getting along lately. It was truly so fun to spend time with them as a unit, and they seemed to make each other happy. It was so frustrating that they had so much complicated history together, and so many difficult things and people that got in the way of them just making each other happy. Michael privately had been conscious of the jewelry box in his pocket. He debated whether he should give the earrings to Victoria at that time, but for some reason it didn't feel quite right yet. Of course he should give them to her, Michael thought to himself. You bought them for her. What do you need diamond earrings for? Just do it, you idiot. Give her the box. Michael made up his mind and was reaching for the box, about to retrieve it from his pocket, when they all heard a knock at the door. "Huh?" Victoria said as she got up. "Who is that?" Olivia had no idea who to expect, or which of the three of them this dinner-time visitor might be looking for. Of all the guesses Victoria might have had, never in a million years would she have guessed correctly. Victoria stood in the doorway looking at the two men standing there, smiling warmly at her. One of the men looked so familiar to her, but she couldn't quite place her fingers on how she knew him. "Hello?" She greeted them questioningly. She had been wary of opening the door for strangers ever since the press barged into their apartment, violating their privacy and making Victoria feel unsafe in her own home. Olivia, overcome with curiosity, decided to get up from the dinner table and see who was at the door. When she saw who it was, she was shocked. "Cousin Jed? Duke Lee? What are you two doing here?" Upon hearing Olivia greet Jed, Victoria's mouth dropped. "You are Jed Park? As in my nephew, Jed Park?" "That's right." Jed tipped an imaginary hat to Victoria, grinning like a Cheshire cat. He knew seeing his aunt after all these years would be a surprise for both of them, and he was feeling giddy now seeing the face Victoria made. "Oh my goodness!" Victoria opened her arms and embraced the man. "I haven't seen you since you were in diapers." "Who says I'm not still wearing diapers?" Jed joked, patting Victoria fondly on the back. They separated and Victoria greeted Duke Lee as well, her hostess duties kicking in quickly. "Now that I have a good look at you, you look exactly the same." Victoria turned her attention back to Jed, taking him in. "Do you remember that vacation to Hawaii with your parents? The one where I insisted on going into every tide pool and ended up getting all scratched up by the coral?" Jed winced at the memory. "Yes!" Victoria clapped her hands together. "Oh, I just felt so bad for you on that trip. You cried so much that day when all the cousins got to go out and you had to stay home so the nanny could tend to your wounds." "Well, that's what I get for not listening to my elders," Jed chuckled. Victoria turned to Olivia. "When I knew your cousin Jed, he was such a little troublemaker." "You don't say," Olivia answered, smiling back at her cousin. In her head, she was wondering if perhaps this man still was a troublemaker. She thought about the Park family's current ties to the Pluto crime syndicate. Could it be that Cousin Jed was more involved in all that than Olivia had originally given him credit for? As if he could sense Olivia's suspicions, Jed turned to her. "Olivia, you asked what we were doing here?" Jed interjected. "We've just been visiting New York, and after seeing you in Paris, I knew I'd kick myself if I didn't stop by and say hello to my auntie before we left." "How long are you in town?" Victoria gestured for the men to come in out of the hallway, realizing she had kept them standing there longer than was customarily appropriate. "Unfortunately, we're heading out early tomorrow." Duke Lee took his hat off, careful to not let any of the snow that had dusted it fall into the hardwood floors. "Oh, what a pity," Victoria hissed. She was excited to reconnect with a family member after so long. "Vicky, Liv, is everything all right out there?" Michael called from the other room, and Jed's face immediately dropped. "All good, Dad. We'll be right in," Olivia called back, noting Jed's change in expression. "Well, we don't want to interrupt. We just wanted to stop by to say hello." Jed nudged Duke, signaling that it was their time to leave. "We'll let you go on with your evening." But Victoria waved her hands, dismissing the notion. "Nonsense. We were just about to sit down for dinner. You must join us." "We don't want to be an imposition, ma'am." Duke had already put his hat back on, ready to head out. "Not an imposition at all." Victoria smiled at the men. "In fact, I'll be offended if you don't stay." "Well, I never like to offend a lady," Jed conceded, peeling his coat off. "Thank you, Victoria. We'd love to join." "I'll take your coats." Victoria held her arms out for Jed and Duke's heavy winter coats. "Olivia will take you to the dining room." Olivia had led Jed and Duke into the dining room, and Michael, who had already started helping himself to some of the food Victoria had put out, stood quickly, a little flustered by the intrusion. "We're having some guests for dinner," Olivia announced, sounding as happy as possible to ease whatever possible tension might exist between the men. "Jed Park, sir." Jed stuck out his hand to shake. "Michael Johnson, a pleasure to meet you." Michael reached out to meet Jed's hand, but was surprised by how firm of a handshake the man met him with. Jed tried to hide his displeasure. As soon as Olivia had referred to this man as Dad, Jed had assumed it was indeed Michael. But now it was confirmed. He had never met the man, but he knew his reputation. This was the same Michael Johnson who had up and left his aunt while she was pregnant, instead marrying her best friend and impregnating her soon after. While Michael was shaking Duke Lee's hand, Olivia glanced over at Jed. She couldn't help but notice the look of disapproval in Jed's head. She wasn't sure exactly what was going on, but she was going to find out. She focused her attention on Jed, slipping briefly into his thoughts. "So this is him," Olivia heard her cousin thinking. "This is the man who disgraced my Aunt Vicky and her daughter. How dare he sit here so comfortably in the home of the women he betrayed?" Olivia was surprised. She had heard the Parks and the Johnsons had their differences, but she didn't realize how much of a grudge the Parks still held against her father. "I guess if you only have the facts, my dad doesn't come out looking too great," Olivia thought. But hopefully, if Jed gets to know him better, he'll see how much my dad has changed. What Olivia didn't clock was her own father's disappointment. She had forgotten his plan to give Victoria the earring she had helped him pick out earlier. Although Michael was happy for Victoria that she had family in town, he couldn't help but feel down that he would have to rearrange his plans to give her his gift. Victoria hurried into the room then, eager to hear more from her nephew. Sit, please." Once the men were all seated, Victoria rushed around the table, serving all of them giant helpings of her dishes. Finally, she took her seat across from Jed, grinning ear to ear. "Aunt Vicky, this is delicious." Jed piled another helping onto his fork. "She's an amazing cook, isn't she?" Michael looked to Victoria lovingly, and Jed glared. He cleared his throat. "You know, I was thinking, you ought to come back with us to Europe to see the family." "Oh, well, I don't know. It's a rather quick turnaround." Victoria put her fork down, considering the offer. "Oh, you know how much Granddad loves New Year's Eve. Imagine if you showed up. It would make his entire year right there." Jed snapped his fingers together for emphasis. "Well," Victoria looked quickly between Michael and Olivia, "it would be fun." "Heck yes, it would." Jed beamed. "We could easily get you on our flight tomorrow morning. We're flying private, so Lord knows there's plenty of room, right, Duke?" "Sure thing." Duke was more focused on the potatoes on his plate than he was on the conversation. Michael perked up at this. He had been thinking he would give her the earrings after dinner, once Jed and Duke had left. But how could his little gift compete with Jed's offering to take her to Europe to see her long-lost father? On top of that, he didn't want Victoria to leave. Not now, when he felt he was finally making some sort of progress with her. Before Michael even had a chance to voice his opinion on the matter, Olivia spoke up. "I don't know if that's such a good idea, Mom. We've got so much going on here." "Don't worry, little lady. I promise I'll take good care of your mother. Just like when we were kids." Jed winked at Victoria. Olivia felt uneasy. She knew Jed was family, but she also knew you couldn't always trust family. Look at Jack and Bruno, for instance. Even her own grandfather wouldn't blink to have her eradicated. Who's to say the Parks would be any different? Of course, she knew that the Parks had a much better reputation overall than the Johnsons. Practically everyone she met had wonderful things to say about Andrew Park, whereas barely a soul had a kind word about Jack Johnson. But she couldn't forget that the Parks were connected to the Pluto organization. This alone was enough to make Olivia wary of their intentions. Even if the Parks themselves were not evil, they could have gotten into a sticky situation with the crime syndicate. If they owed them money or a favor, who knows what they might trade to pay them back. "What if we went together in the spring?" Olivia suggested. "You said I could come too and visit Grandpa, right, Cousin Jed?" Olivia tried to sound as sweet and unsuspecting as possible. "We could go right after my final exams. It would be a fun graduation trip." "You could do both." Jed smiled back at Olivia like she was a naive little kid, making her hackles go up even more. "Your mom can visit now, and then we'll send for you both come June." "That would work," Victoria added. The more she thought about surprising her grandfather for his favorite holiday, after all these years, the more excited she was getting. "Well, then it's settled." Jed slapped his knee. "Pack your bags, Vicky. We're heading to Europe." "No!" Olivia blurted out. She hadn't meant to raise her voice so loudly, but it was just a reflex. Everyone at the table stared at Olivia now, surprised by her outburst. Olivia racked her brain. She couldn't outright say that the reason she didn't want her mom to go to Europe was because she didn't trust Jed. She had to think of another excuse. "I really want you to be here during my game launch." She looked down at her hands in her lap, trying to seem sincere. "I just want my mom to be there for support." Victoria looked at her daughter with concern. She felt incredibly conflicted now. Of course, she wanted to see Andrew Park and her other family members. But this was her only daughter. She loved Olivia more than anyone else in the world, and if it meant so much to her, she would stay. "All right, sweetie, I'll stay." Victoria looked apologetically at Jed. "We'll just have to come out at a later time." Jed Park forced a smile back at his aunt. "Well, all right then, it's an open invitation." Michael smiled to himself. He didn't want to be the one to get in the way of Victoria's happiness, but he was glad she'd be staying. After dinner, the group enjoyed coffee and dessert, the tensions from earlier melting away slightly. Finally, it was time for Duke and Jed to leave. The family got up to say their goodbyes, and Olivia offered to walk them out. In the foyer, just before they exited, Duke stopped and turned to Olivia. "Before I forget," he said as he reached into his jacket and pulled out a rather large, flat wooden case. "This is for you." He handed Olivia the case, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a small golden key that matched the lock inlaid in the front of the case. "Don't lose this now. You never know when you might need it." "Thank you." Olivia smiled up at the man. She instantly knew what was inside the case, and she was afraid she might need it sooner rather than later. Once in the elevator, Jed's face fell. "You think she knows?" Duke asked. "Of course she knows. There's no way in hell a girl like that cares about her mommy staying in town for some silly video game release." Jed took a deep breath. She knows about Pluto. Smart girl. Jed and Duke rode the elevator in silence for a moment. After a moment, Duke spoke up again. "You think the rest of the Parks are going to return to the States?" "Oh, yeah." Jed nodded, keeping his gaze fixed straight ahead. "It's just a matter of time." New Year's Eve came and went, the entire city celebrating the start of another year. But Olivia was too distracted to enjoy the festivities. She didn't even partake in a midnight toast. She was too anxious about the release of her new game, Grudge Keeper: The Siege of the Damned. The game was set to release at noon on New Year's Day, and Olivia was vibrating with anticipation. Already, there was nothing but positive reviews of the game. They had released special sample editions to some of the top gamers and reviewers in the world, and all of them had agreed that it was one of the most enjoyable single-player games of the year. Not to mention Olivia's own parents, who typically never played any kind of games, were very excited by Grudge Keeper. Michael was probably too excited, his enthusiasm bordering an addiction. But it was all a good sign for the success of the game. While others counted the seconds to midnight on New Year's Eve, Olivia found herself counting down to noon the next day. Finally, the hour came and went, and Olivia felt herself let out a sigh of relief. Immediately, the game encountered extreme success. Online reviewers who had not been big enough to receive one of the special early editions were raving about the quality of the game. There had been lines around the block at every game shop in the city, and by 3 o'clock that afternoon, they had all announced they were sold out of all copies of Grudge Keeper. The stocks for the Confluence technology had gone up 20 points overnight, and Michael's phone had been ringing off the hook. Olivia also found herself bombarded by calls and emails, newspapers and online magazines begging her to do interviews and photo shoots. Her name was trending on Google searches, and Grudge Keeper had become the biggest viral game in the nation. Olivia couldn't believe how well this was all going for her. She knew how hard she and her friends had worked on the game, not to mention all the trust Michael had put in her, allowing her to use whatever resources were necessary. But she never could have guessed the game would be this much of a smash hit. At the Johnson mansion, the mood was not quite as jolly as it was over at Victoria's apartment. Jack Johnson was livid at the success his granddaughter and son were experiencing. Michael had built Confluence up into a Fortune 500 company practically overnight. Every second, the stock value of the company climbed as Olivia's games sold out across the world. If there was one thing Jack Johnson understood, it was business. And he now understood that there was no chance Michael was coming back to Johnson Enterprises. Bruno also cursed himself for his lot in life as he read one of the many interviews with his older brother that had been released within the minuscule amount of time since the game dropped. In this one, Michael was praising Olivia as the smartest of all the Johnson family members, a statement it was not hard to take personally. Even without Michael's praise, Olivia was becoming an internet sensation. Her Instagram following had gone up from 500 to 500,000 practically overnight. There were now articles on multiple fashion blogs noting Olivia's incredible taste and how readers could cop her style for less. Olivia couldn't care less about the attention on her personal life, but she did find it funny how many fans she suddenly had. There were entire Reddit pages dedicated to her, discussing how it could be possible for one girl to be so smart, beautiful, and seemingly down to earth. If only these people could have seen me in my past life, Olivia thought to herself. Everyone said the exact opposite about me then. Across town in his off-campus apartment, Chris obsessively scrolled through the multiple Reddit pages devoted to Olivia. He had gone down a rabbit hole of Olivia-related content and had even gone as far as creating his own Reddit account so that he could report any comments he found referring to Olivia in even a remotely lascivious way. Sven walked into the room just as Chris was reporting a comment from Alexi Loves Games that read, "Olivia's so cute. I love her hairstyle." Sven squinted over Chris's shoulder as he watched Chris select the report button for lewd or sexually suggestive comment. "What the hell, man?" Sven reached over and slammed the laptop closed before Chris could submit the report. Chris whirled around, his eyes fiery with anger. "What were you doing? I was in the middle of something," Chris barked. Sven looked at his friend with genuine worry. "You were in the middle of reporting some poor middle school girl for saying Olivia's hair is cute. Do you really want to stick with that story?" Chris reopened the laptop, ignoring Sven, and continuing with his report. "Chris, man, this is not healthy. Look at yourself." Sven pleaded with his friend. "You don't understand," Chris countered, eyes still glued to the screen. "There are people on here saying they want to marry Olivia. She's my fiancée." Sven just stared at Chris for a moment. This was the same friend he had traveled all over the world with, who was so brave he'd take on men 2 times his size. And here he was, sitting hunched in front of a computer, fighting with people online, like some kind of loser. Chris began furiously typing again, as if Sven were not even there. Sven looked on, horrified, then had an idea. He walked over to the kitchen, pulling a bottle of mineral water out of the fridge. He opened the bottle, casually taking a sip for himself, as he came up behind Chris. Then carefully he lifted the bottle over Chris's head and emptied its contents onto the laptop's keyboard. "What the?" Chris jumped back as the sparkling water splashed him. The boys watched as the screen glitched, a bright line of white light cutting through the middle, and then a horrible whirring noise started, until finally, the screen went black. "What the hell was that for?" Chris seethed at Sven. "You needed an intervention. I was simply helping you." Sven tried to hide a smile. He had to admit destroying a computer in such a dramatic fashion had been a little bit fun. "What about my stuff, all my schoolwork, my personal files?" Chris stared at the dead laptop. He knew there was no bringing it back now. "Oh, please, it's all on the cloud." Sven took another swig of what was left in the bottle. He knew Chris would be angry with his actions, but so what? Sven worked day and night for Chris. He had been helping him with this scheme since they were in high school, and frankly, Sven was growing tired of his friend's attitude. "And what about the cost of the computer itself?" Chris stammered, growing more furious with Sven's casual tone. "Are you going to buy me a new one?" Just then, Olga entered from the other room. "Uh-oh, you boys having another one of your infamous lovers' quarrels?" Chris had forgotten Olga was staying with them temporarily. "Leave it, Olga." Sven rolled his eyes. His cousin always knew exactly what to say to piss both of them off. "Or what? Chris Jones is going to beat me up?" Olga snickered. But Chris was in no mood. He turned to Olga, fuming. "Don't test me right now." He towered over Olga, trying to intimidate her with his sheer size. But Olga, being Olga, just smiled deviously. "Oh no, I'm scared," she mewed, and Chris clenched his jaw. "Olga, I'm serious, knock it off." Sven raised his voice at her. He knew Chris would normally never hurt a girl, especially not one Sven was related to. But this was not the normal Chris he knew. He didn't want to test him right now. Luckily, just at that moment, Vera entered the apartment. "Vera, thank God you're here." Sven rushed over to her. "Maybe you can talk some sense into Chris." Vera took in the scene in front of her. Chris Jones leering over Olga, who was clearly egging him on. Then she glanced over at the soaking wet laptop, and her gaze fell on Sven, holding an empty bottle of mineral water. He moved the bottle behind his back, smiling up at Vera. She raised an eyebrow at Sven, then turned her attention back to Chris, holding her arms across her chest. "What is going on here?" Chris hesitated a moment, still glaring at Olga, then back down, turning to his older cousin. "Nothing," he muttered, looking down at his feet. After his mom died, Vera had basically been the one to raise Chris. She was the only one in the world he actually looked up to, and she was the only one he could feel ashamed in front of. Seems like things are about to get very boring around here." Olga pouted. She knew both boys would be on their best behavior in front of Vera, and she had no interest in sticking around for that. "I'm going shopping. Text me if anything interesting happens." She sauntered out of the apartment, brushing by Vera on her way out. As soon as Olga left, Vera made herself at home, walking over to one of the leather couches and sitting comfortably in the middle. "I want to talk to you, boys." She gestured to the two to take a seat. Sven and Chris exchanged an angry look, but ultimately took seats across from Vera. "I assume this has to do with London?" Sven asked as he sat as far from Chris as possible on the leather couch opposite Vera. "So you already heard?" Vera leaned forward in her seat. "You mean about Old Man Shook? He's dying, right?" Sven pulled out his phone, checking the private messages he had received about the matter. Vera nodded, not particularly sad about the passing of the elder Shook. In their world, people typically got nastier with age, and that had definitely been the case with the Shook family patriarch. "That's right, which is fine. He's lived a long life and all. But the problem lies in the inheritance. Right now, as it stands, the majority of the Shook assets will go to her. Chris Jones frowned. He looked to Sven, the anger gone from his eyes. This issue was much bigger than their argument. Sven caught Chris's glance and silently agreed with his friend to put their differences aside for the moment. He turned back to Vera, leaning forward. Do you know that for sure? Have they found a will? Vera shook her head. That's exactly what I was coming here to ask you to. I figured if you already knew the deal, you'd probably sent someone to investigate. We did, Sven sighed, but they found nothing. Pity. Vera shook her head. She hadn't expected this matter to be resolved easily, but it would have been nice if for once things could just go their way. What do we do now? I'll go. Chris spoke up. To London, I'll go. Sven and Vera looked at each other, then to Chris. Just you alone? Vera's tone sounded worried. She knew Chris was in a fragile state and was worried about him going up against certain people there, one woman in particular. Actually, Chris cleared his throat, I was thinking I'd take Olivia. I wanted to show her around a bit anyway. This could be a good time. Sven let out a snort. Yeah, right. Oh, what, you have an opinion about this too, I assume? Chris let some of the anger seep back into his voice. You're damn right I have an opinion. Sven hissed. Chris wasn't thinking straight at all. This wasn't some vacation. It was a potentially dangerous mission, and he was treating it like a honeymoon. You're just jealous because I'd rather take Olivia with me than you. Chris countered, sounding like a petulant child. Huh. Sven's voice went up an octave. As if I feel sorry for Olivia at the thought of her having to spend a week alone with you in a foreign country. Oh yeah? Why don't you say that to my face? Chris and Sven jumped up, ready to go at each other. Okay, children, that's enough. Vera's voice cut through the tension. Now sit. Chris and Sven both complied, embarrassed they'd been so reactive in front of Vera. Chris, you can take Olivia, Vera reasoned, and Chris smiled at Sven, gloating. But you also have to take Sven. Chris's face fell into a pout. Vera cut him off before he could protest. It's too risky otherwise. You don't want to put Olivia in danger's way, do you? Chris shook his head, his eyes locked to the ground. Besides, Vera added, this is bigger than Olivia. It's bigger than any one of us. Now, are you ready to stop messing around and get to work? This party is insane, shouted one sufficiently drunk employee. Olivia and her team from Confluence were hosting a grand party to celebrate the roaring success of Grudgekeeper, the Siege of the Damned, and the atmosphere was electric with excitement. The ballroom of the luxurious hotel sparkled with lights and echoed with the sounds of celebration. Dressed in their finest, the team mingled among the who's who of the tech and gaming world. Lena's custom-made dress, a stunning creation of sapphire blue, shimmered as she moved through the crowd, while Millie's elegant gown of soft lavender made her look like she had stepped out of a fairy tale. Francis looked sharp in a tailored suit, leaned against a column with a glass of champagne in hand, his eyes taking in the scene with a mix of pride and disbelief. Olivia, the star of the evening, was a vision in a sleek, chic dress that mirrored the sophistication of the event. Her eyes sparkled with the thrill of her achievement as she moved through the room, her friends in tow. Can you believe this is all for us? Millie exclaimed, her eyes wide as she took in the opulent decor. It's like we've stepped into another world. Lena agreed, her voice tinged with excitement. Francis took a sip of his champagne, his eyes meeting Olivia's. To think this all started with an idea, and now look at us, he said, a grin spreading across his face. Olivia clinked her glass against his. Here's to ideas that change the world, she declared, her voice carrying the weight of their journey. The group shared a laugh, the sound mingling with the ambient music and chatter around them. As the celebration continued, people from all corners of the ballroom approached Olivia and her friends, offering handshakes, smiles, and heartfelt congratulations. Each new face brought words of praise for Grudgekeeper, the Siege of the Damned, and Olivia and her team basked in the recognition of their hard work and creativity. Lena's eyes sparkled with every compliment. Millie's laughter rang out more frequently, and Frances nodded in humble appreciation, the group relishing the attention and acknowledgement from their peers. The room quieted as Olivia was handed a microphone, signaling it was time for her to address the crowd. She looked around at the sea of expectant faces, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Good evening, everyone," Olivia began, her voice clear and confident. "I stand here tonight, overwhelmed by the incredible journey that has brought us here. Grudgekeeper was a dream that many said was too ambitious, too out there. But here we are celebrating its success thanks to the tireless efforts of our amazing team." She paused as the audience applauded, her gaze sweeping across the room. "I want to extend a special thanks to all the employees at Confluence. Your dedication, your passion, and your belief in this project have been the driving force behind its success." Turning to her friends, Olivia's smile grew warmer. "To Lena, Millie, and Frances, my friends and the pillars of this journey, your support has been my strength. We started this as a team, and we made it as a team." Lastly, Olivia's eyes found her father in the crowd, and to my father, Michael, who stepped in as CEO to guide and support me. Thank you for believing in my dreams, even when they seemed like just castles in the air. Your faith in me has been my guiding light. The whole room erupted into cheers and toasts. As Olivia stepped down from the stage, the pride on Michael's face was unmistakable. He stood beside Victoria, both of them watching their daughter navigate through the crowd with a grace and confidence that left them in awe. "Look at her," Michael said, his voice tinged with emotion. "She's not just our little girl anymore. She's a remarkable businesswoman." Victoria nodded, her eyes never leaving Olivia. "I always knew she had it in her. But seeing her like this, commanding the room with such poise, it's more than I could have ever hoped for." They observed as Olivia conversed with various attendees, her professionalism evident in each interaction. Her laughter, genuine and infectious, drew people to her, and she handled each conversation with a natural ease. Michael's chest swelled with pride as he watched Olivia effortlessly engage with industry leaders and peers alike. "She's not just keeping up with them, she's leading the way," he remarked, his admiration for his daughter growing with each passing moment. Olivia, weaving through the crowd with a radiant smile, made her way to where her parents stood. Their eyes lit up as she approached. "Mom, Dad," Olivia greeted them, her eyes sparkling with the excitement of the evening. Victoria beamed at her daughter, her eyes shining with unshed tears of joy. "Olivia, I'm so incredibly proud of you," she said, her voice warm and full of emotion. "You've achieved so much." Michael stepped forward with a broad smile. "Congratulations, Olivia," he said, his pride evident. "And to think the customers are so obsessed with the game as I was, who would have thought?" Olivia laughed, the sound light and carefree. "Thanks, Dad. I guess it's a family obsession now," she joked, her eyes dancing with mirth. After a moment, Michael turned to Victoria. "Could I have a minute alone with Olivia?" he asked gently. Victoria nodded, giving Olivia a reassuring smile before stepping away to give them some space. "So what's up, Dad?" Olivia asked, her expression curious as she turned her full attention to Michael. Michael's gaze was thoughtful as he looked at Olivia. "You've done an exceptional job, Olivia," he began, his tone filled with admiration. "You're becoming not just a great developer, but a great leader, too." Olivia's smile broadened, gratitude lighting up her eyes. "Thanks, Dad. That means a lot coming from you," she replied, her heart swelling with pride. Michael nodded, his expression turning more serious. "I've been thinking, you're almost ready to run Confluence by yourself," he said, watching her reaction closely. Olivia's eyes widened in surprise. I can't do that, Dad. I don't know what I would have done without your guidance, she protested, unable to imagine taking on such a massive responsibility alone. But you've been handling the game development and press interactions better than most seasoned CEOs I've known, Michael countered, his voice firm with conviction. You need to start thinking bigger, Olivia. Despite being a senior in high school, you're incredibly business savvy and wise beyond your years. Olivia, slightly overwhelmed, asked, What are you trying to say, Dad? Michael took a deep breath, his next words holding the weight of a significant decision. I think it's time we start phasing you into a more hands-on role as the official leader of Confluence, he said, his eyes searching hers. Olivia stood there, stunned. As Michael's words hung in the air, a whirlwind of thoughts began to churn in Olivia's mind. Could I really be CEO? She wondered, her heart racing at the prospect. But what about my plans for revenge? Can I manage both? She knew deep down that she had the capability to lead Confluence, but her heart was torn. Working closely with her father had brought them much closer, a bond she treasured more than anything. I love working with Dad. It's changed everything between us. I don't want to lose this newfound closeness. Being CEO might change our dynamic. As she grappled with these thoughts, her gaze shifted back to Michael, about to voice her tumultuous thoughts. Before she could speak, however, a PR employee hurried over, an anxious look on his face. Mr. Johnson, we have a problem, he said, slightly out of breath. A few partygoers have had a bit too much to drink and are starting to cause a commotion. Olivia and Michael's eyes followed the PR employee's gesture, landing on a small group of visibly intoxicated men across the room. Their loud voices carried over the ambient noise of the party, their words tinged with disrespect. This game is so overrated, just like everything else about Confluence, one of the men slurred, drawing nods and chuckles from his companions. To their dismay, Olivia and Michael noticed a few reporters beginning to circle the group, their eyes gleaming with the opportunity to spin a scandalous story. Michael turned to Olivia, his expression serious yet encouraging. This is your moment, Olivia. Handling situations like these is part of being a CEO. I know you can do it. Olivia hesitated for a split second, the weight of the task momentarily daunting. But then, steeling herself with a deep breath, she nodded and confidently made her way through the crowd toward the disruptive group. As she approached, the tone of her voice poised yet firm, she addressed the loudest of the men. Hi, is there something I can help you with? The group fell silent, their surprise evident as they found themselves face to face with Olivia. One of the drunk men, steadying himself against a table, sneered at Olivia. It's ridiculous, a bunch of high school students creating a game. It's all a sham. You clearly have no respect for how difficult game creation is. He took a step closer, his voice dripping with disdain. You're just a spoiled rich girl who was bored. That's the only reason this game even exists. Olivia maintained her composure, her expression calm, yet assertive. I have a great deal of respect for the gaming world, she replied smoothly. My friends and I work tirelessly day and night to pour our love for gaming into this project. She stood her ground, her confidence unshaken. I have every right to be in this industry. I respect both the business and the creative aspects of it, and I hope to contribute to the future of gaming. Around them, a few partygoers who had been listening nodded in agreement, their murmurs of support growing louder. Well said, someone called out, and a small cheer went up from the crowd. The man's face reddened, his anger mounting at the public show of support for Olivia. As the tension rose, Francis made his way over, his eyes narrowing as he recognized the main instigator among the drunk group. Hey, aren't you the guy who left that ridiculous bad review on our game? Seems like you're just trying to sabotage us, Francis accused, his tone sharp and unyielding. The drunk man scoffed at Francis, his expression dismissive. And what are you going to do about it? Olivia, standing a little taller, faced the group with a firm resolve. This party is a celebration, and I want all of our guests to enjoy their time. You need to leave. The men hesitated, their bravado faltering under Olivia's steady gaze. They glanced around, noticing the attention they had attracted. Francis stood beside Olivia, his stance silently backing her up. His eyes bore into the drunk man with a quiet threat that spoke louder than words. Feeling the pressure of the room's disapproval and the implicit threat in Francis's stance, the group of drunk men finally relented. Mumbling under their breath, they shuffled their way out of the ballroom. The reporters, who had been closely watching the interaction, were visibly impressed by Olivia's poise and grace under pressure. As Olivia and Francis watched the disruptive group leave, the nearby reporters buzzed. They were clearly impressed by Olivia's handling of the situation. "Did you see how she handled that?" one reporter remarked to another. "She's got poise and grace, but there's a boldness there too. A bit scary in a good way." "Yeah, fearless is the word," another journalist chimed in, her eyes following Olivia as she continued to navigate the party. "She doesn't just have a knack for creating games. She knows how to manage people and situations." They observed as Olivia effortlessly resumed mingling with guests, her demeanor unfazed by the recent confrontation. Her ability to shift back into the role of a gracious host so seamlessly further cemented the reporter's impression of her as a formidable leader in the tech and gaming industry. "Look at her work the room," a third reporter noted, admiration evident in his tone. "She's not just the brains behind a successful game. Olivia Johnson is a force to be reckoned with, and I pity whoever tries to get in her way." As the party continued to buzz with excitement, Olivia made her way over to where Millie and Lena were standing, chatting animatedly. They both looked up as Olivia approached, their expressions changing to ones of admiration. "Wow, Olivia, you were amazing with those drunk guys," Millie exclaimed, her eyes wide with respect. "I mean, seriously, how you handled that situation was so impressive." Lena nodded in agreement, her eyes reflecting a mix of awe and relief. "Honestly, I don't know what I would have done if someone spoke to me like that. You were like some kind of diplomatic ninja." Olivia chuckled, brushing off the compliment with a shrug. "I guess I'm used to disruptors by now. Kind of expected it today with all the hype around the game," she said, her tone casual but confident. She leaned in closer to her friends, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "Besides, handling a couple of drunk guys at a party? That's just a regular Tuesday for me," she joked, a playful smirk on her lips. Millie and Lena burst into laughter at Olivia's remark. It was true. Olivia was more than used to handling drama. Olivia's gaze shifted across the room, thoughtful and anticipatory. "You know, with the next game we release, there'll probably be even more drunk guys and trolls," she mused, her tone tinged with a mix of realism and determination. Millie, ever curious, leaned in. "Do you already have ideas brewing for the next game, Olivia?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Olivia sighed lightly, her mind already racing with concepts and possibilities. "I have a few thoughts, but I want to wait until this media frenzy dies down a bit before diving into anything new," she explained, her gaze drifting across the room filled with reporters and industry insiders. Lena shook her head, her expression one of empathy. "I can't even imagine working under all the attention you and your family are constantly getting. It must be so overwhelming." Olivia gave a half smile, a hint of wariness in her eyes. "It's super annoying, being in the public eye all the time. It's like you're under a microscope, with every move you make being scrutinized." She paused, her friend's understanding looks giving her a sense of comfort. "But hey, it's part of the job, right?" As their conversation shifted, Lena's expression turned curious. "Speaking of being seen, where's Steve Shook tonight?" she asked, glancing around the room as if expecting to spot him. Millie sighed, a hint of concern in her voice. "Something's been up with Steve and his family lately. It's been weird not having him around as much," she commented, her brows furrowed slightly. Olivia's mind instantly went on high alert, piecing together the snippets of information she had about Steve's situation. Could this have something to do with his father being ill? She wondered internally, her thoughts racing. if it's serious enough for Steve to reconnect with his distant family. Olivia pondered, considering the implications. Does this have an effect on the 7 families? Is it bad enough to cause a shift among the families? Olivia shared her thoughts aloud, albeit cautiously. It must be serious. Remember, Steve was practically exiled from his family, she said, her tone reflecting her concern. Internally, Olivia's mind was a whirlwind of speculation. What does this mean for Steve? Could the ranks in the Shook family change to include him now? She knew the world of the 7 families was intricate and often unpredictable. A change in family dynamics, especially in a family as influential as the Shooks, could have far-reaching consequences. This could be a significant shift for Steve, and potentially for all of us, Olivia thought, her mind abuzz with the possible ramifications. Lena looked around once more and asked, "And where are Sam and Zach tonight?" Millie shook her head with a hint of disbelief. "Can you believe so many of our friends missed this huge moment? It's like we're all getting pulled in different directions." Olivia nodded, a thoughtful look crossing her face. "It's crazy how busy everyone is," she remarked, her voice reflecting a mix of understanding and disappointment. "Yeah," Millie added. "Sam's actually overseas right now. His grandfather is sick, so he had to go be with his family." A wave of sympathy washed over Olivia and Lena upon hearing this. "That's really tough," Olivia said softly, her heart going out to Sam. "I hope his grandfather gets better soon." Lena nodded in agreement. "It's never easy dealing with family illness. Poor Sam," she murmured, a somber note in her voice. Olivia chimed in, bringing the conversation back to a lighter note. "Oh, and Zach, he's with his family, meeting Callie's fiancé." The girls immediately brightened up at this news. "Callie's getting married? That's so cool!" Lena exclaimed, her voice lighting up with excitement. Millie's eyes sparkled with a dreamy look. "I just love the idea of love and marriage, you know? Having that one person who's your partner in everything," she gushed, leaning forward, her enthusiasm palpable. "It's like you go through life together, facing everything hand in hand. The romance, the commitment, it's just so beautiful." She continued, her words flowing like a river of romantic notions. "I mean, imagine finding someone who just gets you, who laughs at your jokes, supports your dreams, and is there for you through thick and thin. Walking down the aisle saying your vows, and starting this amazing journey together. It's like something out of a fairy tale." Olivia and Lena exchanged glances, their smiles faltering slightly. Millie's rapturous monologue about love and marriage, while heartwarming, struck a chord with their own complicated romantic situations. As Millie waxed poetic about finding the one and the joys of being deeply in love, Olivia couldn't help but think about her tangled feelings for Chris, and Lena seemed lost in her own thoughts about Francis. As the trio prepared to rejoin the festivities, Lena gently tugged at Olivia's arm. "Hey, can we talk privately later?" she asked, her tone indicating a matter of some importance. Olivia, sensing the seriousness, nodded in understanding. She had a hunch it was about Francis. "Of course, Lena, we'll find some time," she assured her. As they made their way back into the heart of the party, Olivia spotted Francis mingling with a group of guests. She waved him over, her friends gathering around to include him in their conversation. "Hey, Francis, how's your gaming going?" Olivia asked, her tone light and curious. Francis brightened at the question. "It's going really well, actually. Having a lot of fun with it," he replied, his enthusiasm evident. "There's this player I've been teaming up with a lot recently, Gamer Bunny Girl. She's really good." At the mention of Gamer Bunny Girl, Lena's cheeks flushed a deep red, and she quickly averted her gaze, trying to hide her reaction. Olivia and Millie exchanged a quick, knowing look, both catching Lena's blush but choosing not to comment. Francis, completely oblivious to Lena's blushing, continued with a hint of admiration in his voice. "Gamer Bunny Girl is not just good at the game, she's amazing. Her strategies, her moves. It's like she's always 2 steps ahead of everyone else," he said, his enthusiasm growing with each word. Millie and Olivia exchanged glances, struggling to suppress their smiles as they watched Francis light up at the mention of Gamer Bunny Girl. It was clear to them that his admiration for the mysterious online player was more than just about her gaming skills. "And it's not just the gaming," Francis added, a softness entering his voice. "I really enjoy our chats, too. She's got a great sense of humor." As Francis went on, Lena's blush deepened, and she tried to subtly fan her face with her hand, hoping to cool down and hide her reaction from Francis. Olivia, seizing the opportunity for a little playful teasing, leaned in. "Sounds to me like someone has a bit of a crush on Gamer Bunny Girl," she said, her tone laced with amusement. Francis's face turned a shade redder, and he quickly became defensive. No, it's not like that. I don't have a crush on her," he stammered, clearly caught off guard by Olivia's suggestion. Curious, Olivia tilted her head slightly. "What's wrong with having a virtual crush, though?" Her question was innocent enough, but carried a hint of mischief. Francis shuffled uncomfortably, his hands in his pockets. "There's nothing wrong with it," he conceded, "but I'd prefer having a girlfriend in real life, someone real, you know?" Upon hearing these words, Lena's reaction was immediate and uncontrolled. She let out an involuntary squeal and leaned into Millie, her face a mask of hope and excitement. "Oh, if only Francis knew Gamer Bunny Girl was me," Lena thought, her heart racing. "I wish I could just tell him. Maybe, just maybe I could be that real-life girlfriend he's talking about." Her mind buzzed with the possibilities. The idea of revealing her online identity to Francis both thrilling and terrifying. Could I really be Francis's girlfriend one day? Lena's thoughts swirled with a mixture of fear and longing. She had harbored feelings for him for so long, and the prospect of them being together seemed like a distant dream that suddenly felt within reach. Francis, noticing Lena's squeal, turned to her with a puzzled look. "Everything okay, Lena?" he asked, his brow furrowed in confusion. Olivia, quick to help her friend, jumped in to cover Lena's reaction. "We're just all excited at the idea of you having a girlfriend, Francis," she said, her voice filled with a friendly tease. "After all, you're a great guy. You deserve someone who's not just great, but also shares your passion for video games." As she spoke, Olivia shot Lena a sly smirk, her eyes twinkling with shared understanding. Millie, catching on to the situation, suppressed a laugh, her shoulders shaking slightly. Francis, still somewhat puzzled by the girl's reactions, felt his cheeks warm up with a blush. "Well, thanks, I guess," he responded, a sheepish grin on his face. Before he could say anything more, his phone rang, pulling his attention away. "Excuse me, I need to take this," he said, stepping away from the group. As he walked off to answer the call, he glanced back at the girls, still trying to figure out the undercurrent of amusement he had sensed. Once Francis was out of earshot, Millie and Olivia turned to Lena with excited squeals. "He totally likes you," Millie exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Lena's cheeks flushed a deeper shade of red. "He can't like me. He doesn't even know I'm Gamer Bunny Girl," she protested, her voice tinged with a mix of hope and frustration. Millie wouldn't have any of it. "That can't be true, Lena. He has to have some inkling it's you," she insisted, her hands animated as she spoke. "You guys talk so much in the game, and the way he just lights up when he mentions Gamer Bunny Girl? It's gotta be more than just gaming." She continued, her enthusiasm building with each word. "Think about it, Lena. You and Francis, you're perfect for each other. You both love gaming, you have the same sense of humor, and you clearly get along so well." As Millie went on, Lena's blush deepened, her heart fluttering at the thought. She allowed herself to briefly daydream about being with Francis. The laughter, the shared passions, the possibility of something more than friendship. In her mind's eye, she pictured them together side by side, lost in conversation, their connection undeniable. Lena's heart filled with warmth as she thought about her and Francis. But as Lena continued to daydream, a small frown started to settle over her face when she realized it wasn't real. Lena playfully pouted, her tone a mix of whimsy and wistfulness. "But he doesn't know that he likes me, though," she said, a hint of longing in her voice. Olivia couldn't help but smile at Lena's adorable expression. Why don't you just tell him it's you? Reveal the mystery behind Gamer Bunny Girl, she suggested, her eyes alight with encouragement. Lena bit her lip, considering the idea. I can't just tell him, it has to be special. It needs to be more than just a random confession, she insisted, her romantic heart yearning for a memorable moment. Well, then make it special, Olivia urged, her voice full of excitement for her friend's blossoming love story. Lena paused, mulling over Olivia's words. Slowly, a spark of excitement lit up her eyes. She straightened up, a newfound determination in her voice. I've got it. I'm going to tell Francis on Valentine's Day. It's perfect, romantic, special, and it gives me time to plan how to do it. Her friends' faces lit up in response, their excitement matching Lena's. They could almost feel the magic of the looming connection between Lena and Francis. How will Francis react? Olivia wondered. Will he profess his undying love for Lena? Or will he never want to speak to her again? As the party around them continued in a whirl of lights and music, the girls stood together, their faces lit up with excitement at the thought of Lena's romantic revelation. Millie, ever the dreamer, clasped her hands together, her eyes sparkling with ideas. Okay, Lena, hear me out. You could set up a whole scavenger hunt for him, with each clue leading to a memory you guys shared in the game, Millie suggested, her voice bubbling with enthusiasm. Olivia jumped in, her imagination running wild. Or what about a themed party? You could reveal it to him there like a grand gesture in front of everyone, she added, grinning at the thought. Despite her concerns over how Francis might react, she couldn't help but get swept up in the idea of two of her friends finally professing their love to each other. Lena, however, started to look more and more uncomfortable with each grandiose plan her friends concocted. The color rose in her cheeks as she fidgeted with the hem of her dress, clearly overwhelmed by the extravagance of their ideas. Guys? Lena interjected softly, her voice barely above a whisper. The other girls fell silent, turning their attention to her. I was actually thinking of telling him over the game, not in person. Millie and Olivia's initial excitement dimmed a bit, replaced by a mix of surprise and curiosity. Why through the game? Millie asked, her eyebrows raised. Why not in person? Lena's eyes sparkled as she explained. That's how Francis and I really connect. I want to do it in a way that's meaningful for both of us, through the game. Her excitement grew as she shared more of her plan. There's this special event for couples in the game. I'm going to make a couples ring for him. It's going to be perfect. Olivia and Millie couldn't help but smile as they saw Lena's enthusiasm. Her plan, unique and personal, seemed to fit her and Francis's relationship perfectly. But then Lena's face clouded with doubt. I just worry it might not be the best idea. Francis seems to really dislike the idea of online relationships, she confessed, her confidence wavering. Olivia and Millie exchanged a look, then turned to Lena with gentle encouragement. Lena, this is such a sweet and thoughtful way to express your feelings, Olivia said. You should absolutely go for it, and hey, she added with a playful grin, if it doesn't work out, you can always delete your character and start over with a new one. Lena laughed, the tension easing from her shoulders. You're right, she agreed, feeling a renewed sense of optimism. I'll do it. I'll make the couple's ring and tell him. It's now or never, right? With her friend's support bolstering her courage, Lena felt ready to take the leap, hopeful for what the future might hold for her and Francis. Lena nodded, her spirits visibly lifted by her friend's encouragement. Thanks, guys, I needed that, she said, her smile growing wider. I'm actually heading to Boston to see my parents while we're still on winter break. Olivia and Millie's faces lit up with genuine happiness for their friend. That's wonderful, Lena. It must feel so great to go back home, especially after being on your own before I moved in, Millie said, her tone warm. Yeah, it does, Lena agreed, her eyes reflecting a mix of anticipation and joy. I think they really miss me. It's been nice to spend some time with them. Turning to Millie, Olivia asked, "Are you going to spend any time with your family?" Millie shook her head. "Nope, I'm staying put this break. It'll just be me and my rabbits at home while Lena's away. But don't worry, we'll have our own little party," she added with a chuckle. As the party began to wind down, the three friends exchanged heartfelt goodbyes, each of them feeling a blend of excitement and nostalgia as they contemplated their plans for the break. "Have a great time with your family, Lena," Olivia said, hugging her friend. "And Millie, enjoy your quiet time with those furry little troublemakers." With one last group hug, they parted ways, ready to enjoy their well-deserved break and looking forward to reuniting once it was over. As the party came to a close, Olivia left the venue with Victoria and Michael, stepping out into the crisp New York night. The city was quiet, save for the distant hum of traffic and the occasional blast of cold wind that swept through the streets. "Holy moly, it's freezing!" Olivia exclaimed, wrapping her coat tighter around herself. Michael chuckled, rubbing his hands together for warmth. "Welcome to New York winter. It's like the city turns into a giant freezer," he joked, his breath visible in the chilly air. Victoria, walking arm in arm with Michael, smiled at their banter. "I'm so proud of both of you," she said to Olivia and Michael, her voice filled with warmth despite the cold. "Creating that game together, it's been incredible to watch." She looked at them, her eyes shining. "And it's been so heartwarming to see you two get closer and work together. It's brought a lot of joy to my heart." Olivia beamed at her mother's words, feeling a rush of gratitude for the bond she had strengthened with her father. "Thanks, Mom. Working with Dad has been an amazing experience," she replied, glancing at Michael with a smile. Michael returned her smile, but his gaze lingered on Victoria a moment longer, filled with a mix of hope and longing. "Maybe we can truly be together as a family again," he thought, the idea warming him more than the winter air ever could. But then Michael's expression changed. He noticed something odd in front of their apartment building and frowned. Olivia and Victoria, noticing the change in Michael's demeanor, looked at him with concern. "Dad, what's wrong?" Olivia asked, her voice tinged with worry. Victoria's eyes followed Michael's gaze, trying to discern what had caught his attention. "Michael, is everything okay?" she inquired, her voice steady but anxious. Michael held up a hand, signaling them to stay quiet. "It's probably nothing," he said, trying to sound reassuring. "There's someone waiting out in front of our place. I want to find out who it is." He subtly positioned himself in front of Olivia and Victoria, his protective instincts kicking in. "Just stay behind me, okay? Let me check this out first," he instructed, his tone firm, yet calm. Olivia and Victoria exchanged a glance, unease creeping into their expressions. They quietly complied, stepping behind Michael as he cautiously approached the figure, ready to confront whatever or whoever was waiting for them. As they reached the front of their house, Michael turned on the flashlight on his phone, casting a beam of light toward the figure lurking in the shadows. To his relief, he recognized Chris standing there, looking slightly startled by the sudden illumination. Michael's posture relaxed, but a curious frown remained. "Chris, what are you doing out here so late? It's not like you to be hanging around outside our place at this hour," he asked, his tone a mix of surprise and concern. Caught off guard, Chris's cheeks turned a shade of pink, clearly not expecting to be discovered by Olivia's parents. Chris maintained his gaze on Olivia, his expression earnest. "I was just hoping to talk to Olivia after the party," he admitted, his voice tinged with a sense of urgency. Michael regarded Chris with a protective father's scrutiny, his eyes narrowing slightly. "It's a bit odd to be standing out here in the cold, don't you think?" he remarked. Chris nodded, understanding Michael's protective stance. "I know it seems odd, Mr. Johnson, but I really need to share something important with Olivia. It's personal." Olivia, noticing the seriousness in Chris's demeanor, felt a flutter of curiosity and concern. She stepped a bit closer, her attention fully on him. Michael, sensing the gravity of the situation, yet still cautious, asked, "And what is it that you need to tell her, Chris? Can it wait until a more appropriate time?" Chris hesitated, his eyes flickering between Michael and Victoria. "I'm sorry, but I can't share that with you. It's something only Olivia should hear," he said, his voice respectful but firm. Michael and Victoria exchanged a glance, their expressions a mix of skepticism and curiosity. They could sense the sincerity in Chris's words, yet the late-hour meeting outside their home was unusual enough to raise questions. Chris looked earnestly at Michael, understanding the concern his request had raised. "I get how this sounds, and I wish I could explain more, but I simply can't. It's something that really just involves Olivia and me," he said, his tone apologetic yet firm. Michael, after a moment of contemplation, nodded, showing respect for Chris's privacy. "All right, Chris, we'll give you and Olivia some space to talk," he said, stepping back slightly, signaling his trust in Chris's intentions, though he did emphasize that last word. Just as Michael and Victoria began to move away, Chris added, "Actually, there's one more thing. I need your blessing. I want to take Olivia to London with me." This request caught Michael and Victoria off guard, their expressions turning to surprise. "London? Why does Olivia need to go to London?" Michael asked, a new wave of concern evident in his voice. Chris took a deep breath, his resolve clear. "I want to take her to see my grandfather," he explained, the seriousness of his request reflected in his eyes. Michael and Victoria exchanged a stunned look, taken aback by the gravity and suddenness of Chris's request. The idea of Olivia traveling to London to meet Chris's family was a significant step, one that required careful consideration. Chris looked at Victoria and Michael as he continued, "Since the arrangement for our marriage is solidified, and I genuinely enjoy Olivia's company, I think it's time for her to meet my grandfather," he explained, his voice carrying a note of sincerity. Michael paused for a moment, weighing the request. Finally, he nodded, giving his blessing. "All right, Chris, you have my blessing to take Olivia to London," he said, a hint of reluctance in his voice, but trusting Chris's intentions. Chris then turned to face Victoria. "What about you?" Victoria bit her lip. Whatever reservation she might have, she trusted Olivia. "It's up to Olivia," she said at last. Olivia stared at Chris with a mix of suspicion and disbelief. "Does he want to take me to London just like that?" she thought, her mind racing with doubts. Something doesn't add up here. He's never mentioned wanting to introduce me to his family before. Victoria and Michael, noticing the skepticism on Olivia's face, shared a brief glance. Victoria then turned to Chris, her tone firm yet caring. "We'll let you guys talk it over. Take good care of Olivia and Chris. She's very important to us." "I will," Chris promised. With that, Michael and Victoria turned and entered their home, leaving Chris and Olivia alone outside on the cold New York night. The air was thick with unspoken questions and tension, a stark contrast to the clear, starlit sky above them. Olivia crossed her arms, her gaze fixed on Chris. "Cut to the chase, Chris. I know you're not here just to invite me to London," she said, her tone indicating she wasn't buying the story he had told her parents. Chris let out a sigh, slightly frustrated by Olivia's impatience but understanding her skepticism. Okay, he relented. "There's more to it." He hesitated for a moment before continuing. "It's about Steve's grandpa. He's dying, Olivia, and there's growing concern about his will, or rather, the lack of it." Olivia's eyebrows furrowed as she followed Chris's train of thought. "So what are you saying?" she asked, her mind already racing with the implications. Chris continued. "His father married a much younger woman, and she's been caring for him around the clock. But since no one can locate the will, there's growing suspicion. Maybe something shady is going on." The gravity of the situation was not lost on Olivia. "You think there's foul play involved?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. Chris nodded, his expression grave. It's possible. And there's more. We're worried there might be some connection between the Shooks and the Jarbaldis. Olivia's heart skipped a beat at the mention of the Jarbaldis, a name synonymous with power and often trouble. This could be bigger than just a family dispute over a will, she murmured, her mind already piecing together the potential ramifications. Standing there in the cold night, Chris and Olivia shared a look of mutual concern, both aware that they might be on the brink of uncovering something much more sinister than a simple family disagreement. "Well?" Chris asked, his eyes searching hers for a clue. "Will you come with me?" Standing under the dim streetlight, Olivia nodded resolutely to Chris. "I'll go with you to London," she said, her voice steady, reflecting her commitment to unraveling the mystery. Chris's eyes widened slightly at her quick decision, but he wasted no time. Pulling out his phone, he began to search for flights. His fingers moved swiftly over the screen, a sense of urgency in his actions. After a few moments of scrolling and tapping, Chris looked up at Olivia. "I found a flight for us tomorrow afternoon. We need to move fast if we're going to get to the bottom of this," he said, his tone serious yet relieved that they were taking action. Olivia, sensing the urgency of the situation, gave Chris a determined nod. "I'll pack right away," she said, already mentally preparing for the trip. Chris returned her nod, his expression serious as he contemplated the task ahead. As they stood there, a palpable awkwardness settled between them, a reminder of their recent encounter under the mistletoe on Christmas. The memory seemed to linger in the air, making them both uncertain about how to part ways. Chris hesitated, unsure if reaching out to Olivia was appropriate. His hand twitched slightly as if he wanted to make a gesture but thought better of it. Olivia, picking up on his hesitation, decided to break the moment. "Good night, Chris," she said, her voice soft but firm. Without waiting for a response, she turned and headed inside, leaving Chris standing alone in the cold. The door closed behind her, and Chris was left to reflect on the brief, awkward exchange. He sighed, a mix of frustration and anticipation swirling inside him. The next day, Chris and Olivia touched down at the London airport, stepping into the cool British air. As they made their way through the terminal, Chris couldn't help but notice Olivia's attire. She was dressed in warm, cozy layers, a stark contrast to her outfit during their last trip to Paris. With a teasing smirk, Chris turned to Olivia. "I see you've learned your lesson after nearly freezing your legs off in Paris," he commented, a playful glint in his eyes. Olivia shot back a smirk of her own, clearly amused by his observation. "Yep, no need for your sweater this time," she replied jokingly, her tone light and teasing. Chris's smirk widened, pleased to see that Olivia's demeanor towards him was less icy than it had been. Their playful banter was a small but significant thaw in the frostiness that had settled between them. As they navigated their way through the bustling London airport, Olivia glanced over at Chris. "How long will it take to get to your family's estate?" she inquired, her voice tinged with curiosity. Chris thought for a moment before replying. "It's pretty far from the city. It'll take about an hour and a half to get there." Olivia raised an eyebrow, a hint of humor in her voice. "Even with Sven behind the wheel? That man drives like he's in a high-speed chase." Chris let out a laugh, appreciating her light-hearted jab. "Yes, even with Sven's fast driving," he affirmed with a grin. However, Olivia's smile faded into a slight frown, her thoughts seemingly shifting to something else. Chris noticed the change in her expression. "Hey, if it's too far, we can rent a house closer to the city. It's no problem," he offered, concern evident in his tone. Olivia quickly shook her head. "No, it's fine. I was just wondering, how far is your estate from the Shook families?" Chris considered her question. "Not too far, actually. We'll be about 30 minutes away from the Shooks," he answered, watching as Olivia absorbed this information. Olivia nodded slowly, her gaze drifting away as she fell into her own thoughts. As Olivia and Chris made their way through the airport, a flurry of thoughts raced through Olivia's mind. This trip isn't just about uncovering whatever's going on with the Shooks, she thought determinedly. It's an opportunity to elevate my family, to reshape our image and our destiny. She pondered the possibilities, her mind racing. Imagine it, our family, the Johnsons, becoming a name synonymous with power and influence, not through underhanded schemes, but through legitimate success. Me, Dad, and Confluence are at the forefront, turning the Johnson family into a dynasty of powerful ambassadors, independent of Grandpa's manipulations. Olivia's eyes sparkled with the vision of a future where her family stood on its own merits, respected and influential. We can redefine what it means to be a Johnson and move beyond the old ways of manipulation and control. We can be a force for good, a family that's looked up to for the right reasons. Firming her resolve, she turned to Chris, her voice carrying a newfound sense of purpose. Are the Shooks the only other powerful family in the area? Chris stared at Olivia with a puzzled look, clearly taken aback by her sudden suggestion. Of course not, he said, trying to gauge her intentions. There's the Watsons, the Goodwins. Wait, what is this about? I'm just trying to get the lay of the land, Olivia said, trying to sound casual. But back to the Shooks, why don't we head there first? Have you talked to Steve? Olivia shook her head. No, but I'm sure he'd love to see some familiar faces. Chris furrowed his brows, a bit concerned. You want to go to the Shooks family home without any heads up? Just like that? His tone conveyed both surprise and a hint of skepticism. He studied Olivia for a moment, trying to decipher her motives. What are you planning, Olivia? Olivia flashed a mischievous smirk, her eyes twinkling with a daring plan. Why not? Let's just pop by the Shook family. Think of it as a surprise visit, she said, her voice playful yet assertive. Chris couldn't help but smirk back, intrigued and slightly amused by her bold approach. A surprise visit, huh? That's one way to make an entrance, he conceded, admiring Olivia's audacity. But that's really not how it's done here. Chris eyed Olivia with a hint of playful suspicion. All right, Olivia, what are you really up to? Olivia feigned innocence, her eyes wide as she responded, I'm just checking on a friend, that's all. Her voice was light, but there was a hint of mischief behind her words. Chris chuckled, shaking his head slightly. Somehow I think there's more to it. Your mind is a lot more complex than just checking on a friend, he said, his tone suggesting he knew there was more to her plan. Olivia let out a laugh, the sound light and genuine. You'll never truly know what I'm thinking, she teased, enjoying the light banter between them. Chris nodded, his smirk widening. I can see you came to London prepared for, well, whatever it is you're planning, he observed, clearly impressed by her foresight. Olivia gave him a playful, confident look. I'm always prepared. You should know that by now, she replied, her words tinged with a mix of humor and determination. Chris nodded. Well, we should stop by my family's house first, either way. Then maybe we can do your surprise visit. Olivia, with a twinkle in her eye, began to say, Christopher Jones, tell me. Chris quickly cut her off, his tone light but firm. Hey, don't call me that, he interjected. Confused, Olivia tilted her head slightly. What do you mean? Why can't I call you Christopher? She asked, genuinely puzzled. Chris ran a hand through his hair, a small smile on his lips. Christopher just sounds too formal. It's like a name used by people who aren't close to me, he explained, his voice softening. Olivia, sensing an opportunity to tease him, arched an eyebrow playfully. So are we close then? She asked, her tone light and flirtatious. Chris looked at Olivia, his eyes conveying a sincerity that caught her slightly off guard. Yes, we are. You're one of the closest relationships I have, he admitted, his gaze steady and earnest. At his words, Olivia felt her heart flutter subtly, his direct eye contact sending a warm rush through her. Curious, Olivia tilted her head, a playful glint in her eyes. So what should I call you then, since we're so close? She asked, her voice laced with amusement. Chris's reply came with a relaxed smile. Just Chris. You can call me Chris, just Chris. he said, emphasizing the simplicity of his preference. Olivia tested it out, saying his name softly yet deliberately. Chris, she voiced, watching his reaction. She had said his name so many times before, but somehow, right now, it felt laced with something extra. At the sound of his name on her lips, Chris's smile broadened, a look of genuine pleasure crossing his face. He loved the way she said his name. It sounded different, more special when she said it. Caught up in the moment, Olivia playfully sang out his name, stretching it in a melodic tone. Chris, she sang, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Chris's smile grew even wider, if possible. I love how you say my name, he admitted, his voice tinged with affection. Olivia felt a blush creep up her cheeks at his words, pleasantly surprised by his reaction. Well, if we're so close, I should be able to call you something more special than just Chris, right? She teased, a playful challenge in her tone. Intrigued, Chris leaned in a bit closer. Oh, and what would you like to call me? He asked, his curiosity piqued, eager to hear what special nickname she might have in mind for him. Olivia paused, a mischievous look in her eyes. After a moment of playful thought, she said, How about Critter? I think I'll call you Critter Chris. Chris immediately shook his head, laughing. No way, I'm definitely not agreeing to being called Critter, he replied, amused yet firm in his refusal. Undeterred, Olivia giggled and tried to persuade him. Come on, Critter, it's a cute name, she teased, her voice light and playful. Despite his refusal, Chris couldn't help but smile at Olivia's playful demeanor. Nice try, but I'm not giving in on this one, he said, still chuckling. In response, Olivia playfully attempted to tickle him, calling out, You can't escape, Critter Chris! Her laughter filled the air as she continued her playful assault. Chris, unable to resist her infectious energy, laughed along, the affectionate nickname growing on him despite his initial resistance. Okay, maybe it's not so bad, he admitted between laughs. Just as Chris was about to respond, a sudden commotion interrupted them. Olivia was bumped into by a mysterious woman wearing a low baseball cap. Quickly, Chris reached out to steady her, holding onto Olivia to ensure she didn't fall. As Olivia regained her balance, the woman who had bumped into her snapped irritably. Are you blind? Didn't you see me coming? Taken aback by the woman's rudeness, Olivia retorted, Excuse me, you're the one who ran into me. Her tone was indignant, her eyebrows furrowing in offense. The two women went back and forth, exchanging heated words, neither willing to back down. Suddenly, the mysterious woman's eyes widened in alarm, her gaze fixated on something, or someone, behind Olivia and Chris. Without another word, the woman darted away, weaving through the crowd with a sense of urgency. Chris, concerned, turned to Olivia. Are you okay? He asked, his expression showing worry. Olivia, still watching the woman's hasty retreat, replied distractedly, Yeah, I'm okay. Her eyes narrowed as she pondered the strange behavior of the woman and the unseen presence that seemed to have spooked her. Chris, still looking at Olivia, asked again, Are you sure you're okay? Olivia turned back to Chris, a small smile playing on her lips. Critter Chris, I'm okay, she reassured him, using the playful nickname she had just coined. Chris's face flushed a light shade of pink at the mention of the nickname, a mix of embarrassment and amusement in his expression. In a spontaneous moment of affection, Chris leaned in and gently kissed Olivia's forehead. The gesture was tender and caught Olivia off guard, causing her cheeks to flush a soft pink. Feeling a newfound closeness, Chris and Olivia tentatively reached for each other's hands. Their fingers intertwined, hesitant at first, but then they both gave a gentle squeeze, finding comfort and reassurance in the physical connection. As they walked side by side, their hands still clasped together, a sense of warmth and contentment filled the space between them. They enjoyed the simple intimacy of the moment, each acutely aware of the other's presence. Suddenly, their quiet moment was interrupted by a voice calling out, Christopher Jones! The tone was unmistakable and carried across the busy airport terminal. Chris turned around, his grip on Olivia's hand momentarily tightening in surprise, Standing a short distance away was Brent. Chris and Olivia were visibly stunned to see Brent there, their surprise evident in their expressions. Olivia hadn't seen Brent since San Francisco when he had treated Jeremy's grandfather. As Brent's gaze drifted down, he noticed their interlocked hands, and his eyes lingered there for a long moment. A smile then spread across his face, but it was unreadable, leaving both Chris and Olivia uncertain of his thoughts. "Hi, Brent," Olivia greeted him, her voice hesitant. The tension between them was palpable, an undercurrent of unease that Chris picked up on immediately. Attempting to shift the conversation, Olivia asked, "How are Celeste's eyes doing?" Brent's smile was calculated as he took Olivia in. "Her eyes are doing well. She should finish her last round of treatment soon, which will fully restore her vision," he informed them. "That's good to hear," Olivia responded, trying to maintain a polite demeanor despite the awkwardness. Brent nodded in agreement, though his eyes flicked back to Olivia and Chris's hands, seemingly preoccupied with their connection. After a moment of silence, he turned his attention fully to Olivia. "Don't forget what you promised me," he said, his voice serious. "I'd never forget," she assured him. Chris, observing the exchange, felt a surge of protectiveness. "What did Olivia promise you?"